Hello and welcome to our launch of Breaking into Hollywood. We are delighted to be here after a long run of getting here. My name is Bethan Davis. We're here because of a book Gary Goldstein wrote and published last year called Conquering Hollywood. And the amazing feedback he got from that inspired him to create The Next Stage. So based on that feedback and The Next Stage is the reason we're here, which is called Breaking into Hollywood. So let's introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Gary Goldstein. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Bethan. Thank you so much. And yeah, it has been quite a road, and I'm very excited to be here with you tonight. And actually, if I may, Bethan, I'm just going to jump in here for a second and tell these good people, most of whom may not know you. Bethan,
oh, what do you mean? I thought I was a star.
Is that even possible? Well, methinks not, but nonetheless, let's pretend. So Bethan Davies is more than half the reason that we're here tonight. Because in fairness, I have been trying to make this a reality for the better part of the last year, more than half a year, and have stepped in some potholes. And this whole world is not the same as film producing, so it's new to me. And I literally took the universe wanted me to take some time to really learn some lessons, and ultimately gifted me Bethan. Bethan I met through a dear mutual friend. Bethan is a rock star who is basically my partner in this. And when I say a rock star, what I mean is she has headed up, I mean, her resume, I can't go through it all, but she's been the head of the BBC's Music and Entertainment Division in London, producing all their TV shows, working with global star power celebrities and the like. She understands the culture of creativity from entry level to the highest peaks of celebrity. She understands producing. She understands the culture and the community and the mindset of creativity and the professional communities that we're a part of. So number one, and then she did many other things. I'm not going to bore you. Her resume is impeccable, but more important than that by far is her values. We share exactly the same values. We're motivated and driven by the same kinds of things. And we want to build the same kind of community-based, not necessarily product-based, but a community-based place that really addresses some key issues and needs that we perceive. So I am very blessed to have Bethan as my partner. We have built around us as well an amazing team, an amazing culture within on our side of the screen, so to speak. So anyway, thank you, Bethan, for organizing all of this.
Well, thank you for a very flattering introduction. I'm not sure I deserve all that, but I do appreciate it. Let me explain my side of the story. I had read Gary's book, and as he said, we had met through a mutual friend. And Gary has a gift of being able to speak to people and be able to speak to creatives. And that's a gift that not many have, because speaking to creatives is tricky because we're tricky. If you're creative, I call it you've got a blessing and you've got a curse at the same time. But he has this way of being inspirational, pushing you in ways that you may not have thought of to go, and definitely thinking outside of the box. And when I had read the book, he had mentioned that he was working on some coursework and said, would you mind taking a quick look at it? Because I do a lot of stuff multi-dimensional, multi-platform. So we had a look at it, and we kind of started from scratch and rebuilt what was started, and we have come up with what we are very excited to introduce, which is the Master Course, which is 10 modules for screenwriters and people behind the camera. And Gary, I think we should start with an overall view of what Breaking into Hollywood, the Master Course is, and then we can go into more detail what the modules are individually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me start just by I wrote and self-published. Actually, did a Kickstarter campaign to launch the publication of this book, Conquering Hollywood. I should have one in my hand, but I don't. But in any event, so I published this book, and it's been humbling and very, very wonderful, the level of response, the 5-star reviews, the accolades, all of this. And I wrote the book because, why would I write a book? First of all, I love writing, and I'm a good writer, but I am not an author, and I learned there's a world of difference between those two. So to go through the process, which was a year and a half of writing, beginning to write to publishing the book, was motivated by a very big deal for me. I had spent the last 30 years in the cause of the creative community, being a part of it, championing people, and I started by managing younger, not chronologically, well, they often were, but professionally younger talent. They were writers, they were directors, they were actors, they were filmmakers, whatever. And I had to learn how to break myself into the business, and I had to learn how to break them as well into the business if we weren't all going to starve. And so through trial and error, I learned over the years and refined over the years a lot of strategies that really took the mystery out of it, the randomness and the confusion out of it, and that worked consistently. It launched a lot of careers. So that was fabulous. People would ask me, and I started to answer individually or do little teleseminars about 5, 6 years ago. What I realized is there's only one of me, and there's a lot of people who need this information. So I decided to write the book. The book got, as I said, very, very positive reviews, and yet, there's the end yet. So if people would read the book, say, it's fabulous, I've never heard this information, it's crisp, it's clear, you've changed my life, pause, and the question would come up often, now what do I do? And so what I realized is this was a fabulous, I used the word blueprint in the subtitle. It's a great blueprint, but to personalize it, to tailor it, to make it actionable in a uniquely individual way for any given creative, I needed to go further, deeper, and more specific into how do you apply these very clear strategies to your individual case. So that's what gave rise. That's the thing that the mischief that snowballed into the coursework. Why I did it, and when I did it, thankfully, Beth and you were there because, quite frankly, it is so much more dimensional now. It's become truly interactive. It has social prompts throughout it. It has exercises throughout it that are really basically creating an action plan for the next year. So the coursework is something that's really taken a lot of shape and dimension. I'm very proud of it. But that's sort of the genesis of it.
And I think you mentioned a couple of really key things there. That there are clear routes to do things, and everybody's response to those routes will be different. But the actual route itself works. We know that. You've done it. You've used it so many times. The other great thing about what I'm so excited about this is we're building a community. We're building a community of people who want to break into Hollywood, who all have that same kind of interest. And working as a team is always easier than working alone. Now there will be, as we go through the different modules, you'll see the exercises that we've laid out for you, but we're building a community alongside so that you'll be able to jump in and out and share and meet people, like-minded people who are struggling with the same topics you might be struggling with, or that will introduce you to somebody in your area that you may not have known. And with the use of these Google Hangouts and with the communities that we have here and with social media in general, there are so many ways that we can benefit, not just from writing out and doing your homework, by being truly interactive. And I think that's what's really exciting about the Breaking into Hollywood Master Course.
Yeah, and by the way, I just two things very quick and then we'll move on. One is that I define Hollywood very broadly, loosely. So yes, are we going to be interacting with a lot of people at the sort of who have summited Hollywood, whether it's on the film side, the TV side? Yes, we will. But when anyone aspires to make their livelihood, to make their life about expressing their creativity, that's what we're talking about. It might be web content. It could be a number of different areas. But we use Hollywood as sort of the catch-all. And obviously, a lot of people want to succeed at that level in that community, the film and TV community of Hollywood. So that's number one. And really behind all of this, Bethan, it goes without saying. Why creativity? Because why this coursework now? Because what I realized is before I wrote the book, I did some research, and I realized there are literally hundreds of often really impeccably great, gifted teachers teaching craft, teaching how to write a better script, how to be a better actor, how to produce a film better. And I couldn't find a single book that was really devoted to the concept of the career of a creative person. How do you turn talent into a business and grow that strategically as you would any other enterprise? And it seemed to most creatives there were no footprints in the sand. They didn't know, like you would if you were going to be an attorney like I did. You know, you go to school, you get a certificate, you take an exam. There's a path. Well, I disagree, and I think there is a very well-proven path, and that's really what this is all about. It's to try and make this easier, demystify it, and show exactly where those footprints are that you can follow.
One of my favorite quotes from you is, "The unmarketed career is a hobby," and I think that's a big part of this whole venture.
Yeah, I think a lot of creatives love talking about what they do. We all do. It lights us up. It's exciting. It's good. We love to talk about what we do, but I think a lot of people either feel ill-equipped, not literate about how to effectively market themselves, or they just don't know what to do, what strategies, what tactics, what actions to take, and so it's easier to not and to focus on your craft. and I agree. It's imperative that we not let people waste their gifts or waste time and years and let their stories get lost or buried. It's important that creatives actually figure out how to move forward in some concrete sense. So that's what this is all about, and that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, well, I think this is a good time to actually talk about what the master course is. BreakingIntoHollywood.com is live as of this morning. Woohoo! Big day for us. Very exciting. So you can get a lot of information on there. The whole coursework is broken down. You can see what all the modules are about. You can find out as much information as possible. And if you need more information, there's a contact us button, so you can ask there. But I think what would be good, Gary, is to go through briefly, not to word by word, but through the 10 modules and talk about what kind of things we're going to be covering, what we're going to be expecting of people, because it's not just it's a demanding course. It's asking you to do some work. And doing the work is the only way that you're going to move forward. So, but we've made it as fun as possible. It's not going to be like you're in 5th grade having to do your homework. So, do you want to start doing that with module number 1, which is networking?
Yeah, we'll go through a brief top line of each of the. So that yes, the first module is networking. There are 10. By the way, I think it's good for context to assume it's going to take people. You're not going to do this full time, obviously. This is in between your other obligations in life. So we expect it probably is going to take a couple of months for people to complete this process. So we'll go through it sort of in the order that we're offering it in the course. And the first module is on networking. And this is really with an eye toward a mantra that I've had for years and years and years, which is relationships trump results. It's not about the gig or the option or the sale or the audition or whatever those sort of benchmarks are. It's really about the underlying relationships that create enduring success, and this is true of any business, of course. So it's about the keys to accelerating you along your career path, and what are the strategies that work, that place you at sort of in the 1% that are doing the things that other people either don't know or aren't doing, that fundamentally sort of plucks you out of competition, makes you unique just because of your choices. So it's really about smart targeting, knowing how to research and find the very specific people that are going to be important, and it's different from one person to the next, that are going to be crucial to your goals creatively. These are not wannabes. These are people who have some wisdom, some serious experience and success in their given area. And these are people that you think, oh gosh, well, I haven't earned the right. No, it's not true. So I have this theory that number one, no one is unreachable, and we have permission, and we should be speaking with anyone that we think is relevant to our career. And in the course, we talk about how to do that. So networking is about smart targeting, and it's about and how you reach out to these people. How do you talk to these people? How do you access them in a way that is honoring them and puts you on an equal footing, so that you can have an effective, honest conversation with no stress, take all the stress out of it, and it adds value on both sides of that conversation. This is the key. This is how you win the game. This is knowing how to gain access with people who matter, and that it will truncate the amount of time it takes you to get where you want to go and having a clear plan to do that. Those are the keys to the kingdom. So networking is really about not wasting time. If I describe my history, I'll sum it up this way. If I describe my history, I would tell you that on behalf of each of my clients and myself back when I was managing, I had a simple theory. I was going to allocate 30 minutes a day to each career, mine and theirs. And in that 30 minutes, I was going to do research, I was going to target people, I was going to know what the conversation was going to be, but I would only require minimum of 2 outgoing calls a day, 5 days a week. So if you think about the math of this, 2 calls a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, I placed 500 outbound calls in a given year on behalf of a given client. And I assumed that I was going to fail. You define that word however you want. I was not going to get a great result. I was going to fail 90% of the time. I was going to bat, 100. It was like not very good. But if I got 10% to engage with me over time and develop rapport that built into a relationship, if I succeeded with just that many insiders, in 1 year I would have made created a relationship of some, a meaningful relationship with 50 Hollywood insiders. And as soon as I did that, my career was made. 50 Hollywood insiders, and we'll explain later whether we have time in this call or not, why that's true, but your career is on fire. People are talking about you behind your back. People are willing to make referrals for you. That is next to godliness. So if you just put in 30 minutes a day and did what's in this book, if you just did this one chapter, within a year you would actually shift. You would look back and not recognize the landscape of your career trajectory previously. So that's networking. The next module, let's move on. Number 2, and by the way, no, let me tell a quick story. This is so beautiful. So last Sunday I ran into, at the farmer's market here at the beach, a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in quite a while. His name is Carl. Carl has an interesting background, but he decided some years ago he wanted to pursue acting. He is not a leading man. And so we had long talks about it, and he believed absolutely, he just intuitively embraced this whole idea that relationships come first. But we said push it to the extreme, to the absolute max, to the point where you don't go on auditions. You don't, whatever everybody else is doing, you do the opposite. And I will tell you that, 10 years later, he's been in 30 projects, mostly film, some TV. Wow. 15 of which he's very proud of. And by the way, he gave me this big smile and hug when I saw him on Sunday, not having seen him in a while. Why? Because he just got cast in a new CBS pilot that was co-created by the exec producer creator of the series House, co-created and executive produced by the creator of Breaking Bad, 2 rather celebrated shows, directed by Bryan Singer, and cast by Sharon Bialy, who cast Walking Dead, Breaking Bad, all this other stuff. It's called Battle Creek. So he's on this thing for CBS, and here's what's so fun. How did he get it? He did an audition.
What?
He did not actually show up. This is what happens if you exalt relationships in the right way, and you do it in the way that we talk about, where you make each other an equal and you add value, even though you don't think you have that to add. So what did Carl do? He made all these relationships. He didn't know, because I wouldn't tell him years ago, that Sharon Bialy, this casting director, was married to one of my early clients, the creative director of the Old Globe Theater in San Diego, who wanted to become a pilot and TV series director. I represented him. We broke him in. He became a sought-after director. I've known Sharon forever. But when I said, who are the people that would change your game, be game-changing, that you really want to know? He said, Sharon is one of them.
Wow.
I do this thing called the top 100 list. You don't start with 100, but you build to 100 people that you would like to have in your life. She was on his top 100 list. I did not share that I know her or that I represented her husband, but I taught him how to go after, how to have that, create that bridge. And he did. Some years later, she's been watching his progress. She called him and said, I have the perfect role for you. It's in one of the hottest new series. Enough said. He's now in this series. So relationships trump results. Okay.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop you there. These anecdotes are fantastic from your personal anecdotes and from people you know. So everyone that you can throw in, we'd love to hear, and I'm sure everybody else would love to hear as well.
I don't know if we have time for too many, but anyway, so the second module is called branding, and it's really about, this is about your toolkit. Everybody has a toolkit. It's different for actors than it is for writers, but you have it. You have your log line, your query letter, your leave behind, your pitch, what I call your story behind your story, your table read as a tool. You have your follow-up strategy. You have every form of communication, whether it's in person, through email, whatever it might be. So this is your sort of marketing toolkit. Everything to me is marketing. So how do you infuse your USP? How do you get to define and understand about yourself? Because it's hard sometimes to see ourselves. But how do you figure out what is your USP? What is your unique selling proposition? What is your distinctive voice if you're a writer, whatever kind of creative you are? How do you separate yourself from the herd, and how do you infuse your personality and that USP into absolutely everything that you do? That's what makes you distinctive and memorable and takes you out of competition, because they will associate you in ways they're not associating other people who are just submitting the tool, who are just submitting the headshot and the reel. So it's how you talk about yourself and how you frame up the context of introducing yourself to this other person about whom you want to know the same thing, and you ask the right questions, which we get into. So this is true. It doesn't matter if you're trying to option a project, sell a project, if you're trying to find investors or a distributor, or you're trying to package talent into it. It doesn't matter what your outcome is. The process is the sacred, heart of it, and that's what we work on. So, and by the way, in each of these, like in networking, I'm just looking at this list. Each of these modules, just so you understand, is multifaceted. It's in the networking module, I see that we talk about 7 key strategies. We talk about there are 15 exercises that are very, very, and end up being very tailored and unique and personalized to you. They're not going to be the same at all from one person to the next. And that's why this coursework was so hard to create, so valuable to create. So 7 key strategies, 15 exercises, 7 social actions. So there's also social built into this, which is part of your learning and your interaction as a group, but also part of your outreach. Branding, there's 6 key strategies, 10 exercises, 5 social actions, and so forth. So that's the second. The third module is what I call your DO list, and DO stands for your desired outcome. It's, specifically, like when I ask people, what would be the 1, 2, or 3 like amazing things, if it were to, something could move the needle, what would it be for you? What do you really want to happen in the real world now, in real time? So those are that's your DO list, and that's what this module is about. And it really comes down to thinking of every call, every email, every communication, every in-person interaction as a meeting, and having for that meeting a very singular, narrow, specific, and extremely valuable focus as a call to action, as an ask. So I have this idea, and I'm getting out of order here, but it's okay. I have this idea called the rule of 3, and the rule of 3 basically says we're human beings, we're wired a certain way. The first time we meet, we are strangers to one another. The second time, there's a vague recognition, subtle lowercase familiarity. By the third time, our brains are wired in such a way we go, oh, that's Bethan, or that's, so-and-so. And I may not know you well, or you may not know me well, but we have now this sort of anchor of it's almost rapport. It's that bridge you can walk across to create that rapport and relation. You now have permission if you behave well. So once you do that, how do you do that? How do you get, because to me relationship is built with frequency of interaction, and you get frequency of interaction by being an artist, by being a master of knowing how to open the call, how to add value to them, how to give them a promotion, and then how to leave with one call to action, one request that is so easy to say yes to. They actually they unconsciously associate with you the habit of saying yes to you, because when they hang up the phone, there is 0 left for them to do. You're not the person who blindly sent them a letter saying, please spend several hours of your life reading my script and doing and going and jumping and running.
I'm going to jump in here for a second, because Joe Buckman has said a couple times, do you have any advice for a quick fix to get the results on the phone, and that's exactly the opposite of what you're saying. It's never a quick fix.
Yeah, I mean, you want to build. Everybody wants what they want, and they want it now, and yet, out of left field comes to my brain this recent conversation at my mastermind. We had Michio Kaku come speak. Michio Kaku is the face of the Science Channel. He is one of the most celebrated physicists living today, co-inventor of string theory. We asked him a question, which was, among the people that you notice in all fields of endeavor who are successful, do you see a trait in common? His answer was fascinating. His answer was people who can, what were his words? Basically, people who can picture that future that they want, and they have the patience to live into it. They envision it, they practice the discipline of leaning into it, but the key to success in his mind was being an artist at delayed gratification.
That's interesting.
So when you meet someone who might be able to help you, you believe can help you, they're anointed in some sense, the key is not to lunge at them and say, tell me everything that you know, give me the answer, give me the ultimate key. It's to say, I honor you, I value, I have a very simple, small request, so that they can actually engage with you and not feel put on the spot or asked to do too much too quickly for someone that they don't truly yet know and have any kind of affinity or affection for, but to do the opposite, go against that impulse, go against that instinct. I will tell you, if you master that one thing, and you approach people as mentors, even not using that word, and you honor them in a certain way, which we talk about deeply in the course. We actually have conversational prompts that we use. It's a whole art and science to how you engage with people and make them feel really good, make you the call that was most memorable in a positive sense that day, maybe that week. And why you're going to be invited back to repetition is that frequency of small repetitions where people say yes, because you're asking something smart and sensible, and you're actually also contextually adding value, not just asking something of them. So if you learn how to do that, and I do it, I teach people to do the 2.7 or the 3.4 minute call, right? I have one question for you. It's going to take 2.7 minutes. Do you have 2.7 minutes available? Right away, you're memorable.
Right.
You're different, and you're playing a smarter game. So I forget where I was in all of this, but the key is, early on, the first time Joe and others, I would say if you ask advice, but framed up specifically so that someone could answer you quickly. If you ask advice and not favors, you're way ahead of the crowd because you're probably the only person that day approaching them in that context. So that's, that and the rule of three, all of this, it creates its own magic. It's basically how you fast track and accelerate that process of building rapport with the people that you need to know. So
which leads perfectly into Module 4, which is the assistant, your most valuable assistant. Asset.
It's called the assistant, your most valuable asset. In the book and in the course, we made it its own module because it's that important. These are the most valued and powerful people in all of Hollywood, period. The head of the major Hollywood studios have less power than their assistant. Why could I say such a silly thing? Because it's true. Because they control, they are your friends, they are your goodwill ambassadors, they are your door openers and your potential allies in the making. And they literally control the flow of everything. Phone calls, written materials, information. They decide who gets through the filter and how quickly and with whom. And these people are very smart. No one desires to be an assistant. They're all vetted. I mean, to be an assistant on the desk of a major studio executive or a successful agent or a producer, et cetera, you are competing with 100, 200, 300 people, all of whom are most of whom are super qualified, maybe, as we say, overqualified, and are very ambitious, want to learn the business from the inside out, and they progress. Once you're in, You've been anointed, and you are getting, building up your Rolodex, building up your relationships, building up your currency, and you are going to, in 12, 18, 24 months, move on and become the VP of development. You're going to become, and it's not linear, it could be anything. You might be an agent, you might be a production executive, whatever. But these people really control the flow of life in Hollywood. So you need to learn how to engage these gatekeepers, how to become their valued equal, because they need you. That's one thing people don't recognize. If you really understood, which we go over in the course, what their motivations are, how they elevate their value and currency, how they perceive you and what role you can play in their life, that's a game changer right there. You become a welcomed phone call. So this sort of like a role reversal strategy where you're not pushing through them to get to the boss, the name on the door. You're actually engaging with them and literally framing it up that way. I do not want to speak to your boss. I only desire to speak to you. And we give you, there's in the course, there's tons of ways to accelerate your influence and results by knowing what questions, how to research them, how to engage with them, how to follow up with them. And all of those things are tailored to make your presence and your rapport more personal with each interaction. So, and we also talk about how assistants are the quickest way to double your network, your Rolodex in Hollywood. And literally, I would tell you, this is gold to me. I built my entire career. And to this day, years and years later, I have people who were assistants back in the day, who are now magnificently successful. I just had one not all that, but a couple of years ago. I put it in the book actually. A guy who was at the top of the publishing world in New York, and I was trying to do a favor for a friend who had a manuscript, a book proposal. And it was very niche, and I called everyone I knew in the publishing world, and I said, who handles this particular narrow category of book? And everybody said the same name, this guy Simon. So I called Simon, and I introduced myself, and I said, Simon Gary Goldstein, you don't know me, but I'm calling on behalf of a friend who's a chef, one of LA's most successful chefs. He has this book idea. It sounds very innovative, but I don't know what I don't know. But everyone I know says, you are the guy. So as a favor to my friend, or to me, would you look at my friend's proposal? And there was a silence, and he said, you said your name's Gary Goldstein. I said, yes. He said, you're from Los Angeles. I said, yes. He said, you're a film producer. I said, yes. He said, do you know this, and he threw out a name, Ian Greenstein. I said, yes. My God, yes. I haven't seen him in years, but yes. He said, do you remember his assistant back when he was a big agent at X company? And I went, oh my God. His name was Simon. Is that you? He said, Gary, whatever you're asking me, the answer is yes. You are the only person in my entire several-year stint in Hollywood who actually cared to take the time with every single phone call. You never brushed past me. You always asked how I was. You wanted to know what my aspirations were. You actually wanted to answer my questions. You became my only mentor, unwittingly, because you took that extra minute every single phone call to interact with me in a way that no one else did.
It's building relationships, and you grow up together through the business.
So that was, and I can't tell you the number of times, maybe not so dramatic, but versions of that where people comment. So the assistants are these micro generations that you will grow up with and matriculate with, and they are door openers. You just need to appreciate how to engage with them, and we go into that deeply in these exercises throughout. And there's 5 key strategies about the assistants. There's a handful of exercises and social actions as well. And I see the clock moving. So
yeah, which leads perfectly, actually, building the relationships into building your dream team, which is Module 5.
Yeah, this one I can talk about. It's really simple. 99% of all access. I don't care if it's getting an agent to sign you, if it's getting your work read by some important producer or studio executive, or whatever result you have in mind. 99% of the time, you're going to get a positive result. You're going to get that shot because of one word: referral. The referral strategy should fill book after book after book in any business area. It certainly does in Hollywood. 99.9% of 99.9% of the time, any agent will tell you when you ask them, how did you sign, or a manager, an attorney, anybody, how did you sign this person? How did you meet this person? It was through a referral. We go into great detail in this module and in the book about how do you take these ideas and apply them so that you're playing this game I called human billiards. You are actually becoming an expert at getting referrals without asking huge favors. You're doing it in a way that is so elegant and so smooth and so smart. And again, building your rapport with everybody that you do that with, and it's mutual. So, I said this earlier, and it's absolutely, absolutely, absolutely critical for everything. No one is unreachable, and that's true in Hollywood. It's true in every area of creative endeavor. There is no one you can't get to if you approach them in the right way, and referral is the rightest way. That's not a word, I know. It warms up the room. It just creates a context where you become welcome. So we spend a lot of time going through these 6 strategies, 8 exercises, 3 interactions, so that you learn to truly begin to take control, literally take control over the pace and the quality of your career building to support your creative expression, to support your art, whatever that is. And it's really across the entire landscape. People think a lot of times it's about, you know, when people have a new script, for example, they often think, I'm going to send out query letters to every agent I can and to every producer I can. I either want it optioned or I want to be represented. That's like the way you think. No. We have a whole different philosophy and attitude that is so pragmatic, that is so grounded. It's how I built, again, my career. It's taking the assistant idea but spreading it across the full landscape. It's executives, it's cinematographers, it is all kinds of people other than just the producers and the agents. So this referral strategy, to me, it's alchemy, and it's irresistible, and it works. So I'm super excited about that one. Okay, what's next?
I love that you're super excited about this whole thing. The passion that you're showing is amazing. If you're getting kind of lost about Gary's going into, we're kind of crossing over the modules. All the modules are listed individually on the website, breakingintohollywood.com. When we're finished here, head over there and you can see everything in very clear detail. Gary, I love that you're so excited about this.
Yeah, and yeah, don't make notes. Don't worry about it. We've got it all structured. This seems like you know, I don't know, like something got put into a blender, but it really makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I've got a little puppy that we've let off his leash today. That's what you're doing right now. Okay, so now this next module is something that sounds so obvious, and yet so many of us miss in whatever career that we're doing. Get smart, get legal, get protected.
All right, I'm not going to spend, this is a long, this module is very extensive. There's 14 key strategies, there's 7 exercises, there's 4 social actions, and I'm not going to go through all of it. This chat, I can't possibly, but here's what I will tell you. And this is one of the banes of my existence. Creative people, I love them, and they scare me. They scare me because so many good projects have been wasted or lost because their intellectual property, the rights to those projects, got muddied in a way that prevented them from really succeeding in a bigger way in the marketplace. So this chapter is really, module, it's a few key rules that really protects you along your journey, that keeps your intellectual property safe, and that elevates your relation. It keeps the rights protected, but it keeps your relationships honorable and healthy, and it actually enhances relationships. So it's not putting up a firewall. That's not the way we operate. But what it is it respects the basic 3 rules, which is never agree to anything that's not in writing, no matter how informal, and never work for free. I know you're going to hate to hear that, but never work for free. There's only a couple of exceptions to that. And the third one is never talk business on your own behalf. And there's a lot of ways to respect and observe that dictum, even if you don't yet have an agent or manager. There's a way to do. So we get into all of that, but we talk. There's a lot in this module that talks about things that confuse a lot of people: releases, option agreements, agent versus attorney versus manager, all these different things. How to understand whether someone's a right representative for you, at least a right attorney for you. So we go into all of these things, but it's really about how to keep you, there are guardrails to keep you and your creativity, your expressions, your intellectual properties protected and safe, and actually building and adding value as you move forward and not getting hung up. Okay?
Extremely important. Absolutely. Okay, Module 7, identifying your most powerful story, and you have a wonderful story about the writer of Pretty Woman, identifying his powerful story. Do you want to talk about that while you talk about the course, this module?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very counterintuitive. I think the nature of success in the creative field, especially in Hollywood, is a bit counterintuitive. I think to stand out, it's imperative to go against the herd. It's you have to insist creatively on a deeper authenticity and really be disciplined about that. And part of that is creating this distinctive brand and understanding what is your most powerful story. Who are you as a storyteller that's going to make others sit up and pay attention? That is not necessarily what's popular in the marketplace right now at all. In fact, better if you don't. Don't even try to compare or compete. It's just not a good formula. Everyone that I've launched was launched off of one piece of writing. I didn't show a bunch of stuff. I showed one. The one, when they were really ready, that was so distinctive and it's so bespoke, their unique heart and their life experience. No one could have told that story quite the way they told that story, and that's powerful. You mentioned J.F. Lawton. So J.F. Lawton, you know, he was my computer programmer. I love this guy, and back when I was the early to mid '80s, like '84, I think, I forget. And I bought a computer, and it came in a box the size of a house, and you couldn't plug it in because it didn't do anything, and you needed someone like a Jonathan to come in and program it. You needed to tell Jonathan, here's what I do, here's how I do it, here's what I'd like to make my life easier. Can you create that? Can you code that? And he did. He was brilliant. Toward the end of these few weeks, where he's in my office every day, and we'd become quite fond of one another. He's a great guy. He was 23 at the time, skinny little, if he were a fish, you'd have thrown him back. So he's there every day, and we're talking at the end. A few weeks later, he said something, and I said, wait a minute, are you a writer? Because he knew everything that I did, and he hadn't said anything. He said, well, you know, I dropped out of film school, but yeah, I've written 7 scripts, and they're sitting in my studio apartment. He lived in a one-room, scary neighborhood, the Rampart District, and on it, literally on the ground floor on an alley. So he saw visually this parade every day of drug dealers and prostitutes and pimps and police and homeless. And I mean, it was very colorful, right? So this was his window onto the world, literally. And I learned about him. So he said, yes, I've written. I asked him to read some of the stuff, and I did. And it was really, he's talented. There's no question. But it was quirky material. And I asked him, I said, look, what I originally had said to him was, I'll help you find a representing agent. And by the time I read a couple of his scripts, I said, forget the agent. I want to work with you. But I'll work with you on condition that you go away and you write me a mature two-hander, you know, a male, female-driven classic story, but it's got to be a romance. It's got to have a clock, meaning whether it's a day or a week. It's got a time frame. And I want to be able to make it for $6. So in other words, don't have exploding bridges. Do it in a room. And that's all I care about. You can make it a comedy, you can make it a drama, but make it romantic. Why would I ask him to write that particular thing? Well, partly because I'm a romantic and I like them, but not really. The true reason was because Jonathan had just ended a multi-year, a powerfully important romantic relationship in his life, and he was devastated as I'd come to know him. He was literally ripped apart inside, and I'm embarrassed to say, but I knew if I asked him to write a romance, he was going to write the most insane, powerful, raw, vulnerable, honest, ripped apart romance ever.
With that window of his of the world.
Yeah, because that was his authenticity in that moment. That was his most powerful story at that time. And no one could write it quite the way he could. So he hands me a script some short while later. He wrote the first draft very quickly, and I forget the number of weeks, but it wasn't that long. And it was the single best script I'd ever held in my hand. Now, it was a drama. It was a dark tragedy. She ends up on the curb. The money's fluttering through the air. The script 3,000 later became Pretty Woman. Obviously, it didn't stay a tragedy. It became a comedy. But the bones were there. The structure was there. The characters and the dialogue were there. This was a beautifully sculpted story that came deep from his viscera, his spleen, his heart, his guts. And that's what I wanted from him. And that, much like this gal I represent who wrote there were 3 scripts in the marketplace about Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, the muralist. And she had written a story about him. This community wasn't going to make any of them, and it certainly didn't need another one. But I read it, and it was the best of them all. It was so powerful. She had spent all this time in Mexico learning and researching and living, and you could feel it. You could smell it. You could taste it off the page. That script launched her career. I could regale you on and on and on with the one story. I remember every single one of them because they were that standout. It wasn't a body of work. It was a story. And I tell people, identify your most powerful story, the things that you know. It doesn't have to be literal, right? It's not, I'm not, what's a crazy, The Professional, great film, right? Jean Reno, Natalie Portman is a little girl. He's a hitman. That story could have been written by anyone who was, maybe the uncle, a father-daughter story, or the unrequited father-daughter story, whatever. It could be as far-flung as that. It doesn't matter. As long as the feeling that drives it, the experience and the real-world tissue, living tissue that drives that story is irrefutable, powerful, and you can put that down on the page. So identifying your most powerful story it's kind of reminds me that and it's also part of sharing the story behind the story. Like when you go in to pitch that, you don't necessarily have to just pitch what's between the covers of the script. You want to tell people why you chose this story and why you're the only person who could. And by the time you finish that, the story is only half the pitch. They've bought into you. And we teach you how to do that. That's part of this. But it kind of reminds me of Apple's. We started talking about this Apple computer with the big box. And I remember it was years later. But when Steve Jobs and the crew came out with that campaign about not be different, but it might as well be different. Think different. It's like be different. Be different from the marketplace as a creative, as an artist.
But you're also teaching them in this course to be you. Be authentic. Tell your story. Yeah, and learn and get and you're giving them tools on how to get the confidence to do that, which I think is really important for us creatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of these strategies, Beth, and that's brilliant. Thank you. Every single one of these modules, every one of these strategies that we're talking about, I would say if there was one great benefit from mastering, and you don't need to master all of them. That's not the point. You don't need all, what was this one? I forget how many strategies in this one, but you don't need to master all of them. You need to pick a couple that really work for you. Everyone's different. But what you will get from every one of these strategies in any of these modules, you start to work them into your practice, your daily practice. The confidence, it's confidence. This is all about confidence. This is all about getting comfortable and confident and excited, because everyone that you meet, no one that you meet should be a producer or an executive or someone who could hire you or someone who could option your script or someone who could finance it or produce it, whatever. Forget all that. Everybody that you meet becomes a friend who happens to share your passion and interest in something called storytelling, because now you've got this confidence that's come of employing these strategies, and that's exactly, the world starts to look different.
Sense the confidence. Okay, I'm going to move you on to Module 7, which we've got a Part A and Part B to. Testing.
Oh, yeah, this is actually the second part of identifying your most powerful story as well. Okay, so testing is really simple. That's how to road test everything, your log lines, your query letters, everything in your marketing tool, synopses, treatments, pitches, leave behinds, how to, and also who to ask and how to rehearse and how to get feedback and which feedback to pay attention to and which criticism you should discard. Like, it's not everything's created equal, and you have to have a measure, a guide, a sort of a value system that clearly tells you how to know when something's really important. And so we go into all of that. But the testing is literally what it says. Table reads a big testing feature. We test everything. When I'm making a film, you've heard this probably, everybody, every day you shoot, and at the end of the day, late at night, you sit and you watch dailies, or rushes, they call them. It doesn't matter, same thing. You're just watching that day's raw, unedited footage to make sure that there's not a gap, that you're going to go into the editing room with the raw material that you need to find and tell the story that you want. So that's just an example, but there's all forms of testing, and you need to know what kinds of people and how to create an inner circle that you can trust and rely on over time to make sure that you're ready for prime time. You do not want to be sending out your scripts or whatever it is, your reels or any kind of intellectual property, creative intellectual property, before your confidence is really satisfied. You're satisfied that it's really ready because you get, first impressions, right?
Again, it's moving forward with confidence, which is so important for us, for creatives in any endeavor. Module 8, make every meeting count. This is really fascinating stuff for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is how you put yourself in front of others, how you connect more naturally, how you, and this is how to be powerful, whether it's over the phone, in person, doesn't matter. These are understanding, it's not just about how you tell your story, but how you pitch yourself. This is creating dimension, creating a personal feel, creating a way for people to really understand how to, when you leave the room, how to be excited and communicate what you've given them. So, and again, like I say, every interaction is a meeting. Every meeting is a pitch, but every pitch is not about selling, and it's not about getting a job or a particular gig. Every meeting is important, but the win is bigger than a job. And if you understand how to create that context, of course, life is all about irony and duality. As soon as you do that, it's easier to option and sell stuff in the meeting, but you've got to go into it and to totally detach from that and understand this is not about, the win is much bigger than the momentary opportunity, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I think, again, it goes back to the confidence thing, and a lot of us creatives might be the loudest in the room, but also the shyest in the room. And when you're taking something like a script that you've worked maybe for years on, and you're opening your heart to people, and that takes a lot of confidence, and what you're teaching people here is ways to make sure that you're confident doing what you're trying to do, and not getting the no answer, you're getting the yes answer out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I see the clock's ticking. What's next?
Yeah, Module 9, create your own content and take control.
Okay, shortcuts. This is all about the shortcuts to get noticed by industry insiders. This is building your own audience. This is, if people understood how easy it is to create content, to take dominion, to find truly talented collaborators in every category, and go out and do this sort of thing. This is now, especially in today's age, right, with all the technology and distribution outlets and opportunities that we have available to us that are relatively new overall. This is the surest shortcut to getting noticed. And what's interesting is not just to getting noticed and getting entree into Hollywood, so to speak, but if you look at, and this is true of film and it's true of television, if you look at some of the films that have come out over the years, since socials really come up especially, whether it's Four-Eyed Monsters, whether it's, where I made some notes, where Four-Eyed Monsters, Paranormal Activity, the film Once, which was made for $160,000, did like 21 million worldwide. The Sanctuary, which was webisodes initially, that is now went for a few years, handful of years, primetime programming on the Sci-Fi Channel as a series. To Signs, which won amazing short, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes for short films. I mean, These people got such notice and accolades, not just their films made or their TV series programmed on significant platforms, cable or otherwise, but this is more and more the way Hollywood is sourcing and finding, identifying new creative talent that they should be excited about and paying attention to how agents are looking and scouring for the great new voice. Hollywood lives in search of that next great discovery. It's so deep in the DNA of anyone who lives in Hollywood, right? People can talk about contraction all they want. We live for that discovery. We live to find that next great new filmmaker, writer, actor, whatever it is. That's never going to change. That's just who we are. So creating your own content, short content, oh my God, you're leapfrogging 99% who would never think to do it, never have the gumption to do it, wouldn't know where to begin. And we sort of set that out for you. That's really, really just this delicious opportunity waiting for you.
And then to round it all off, which is a perfect ending, persistence, aka pig-headed determination. You need a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you, life is about growth and it's about movement. I personally have a black belt in failure, and I've said that before. I have had more rejection. I've had more, for every film that I've made, I've got not just 10, but more. Of equal quality, projects that died either in childbirth or well into their adolescence or beyond. These projects I might have invested 5 or 10 years in before I finally had to just say it died. I have failed my entire life, including up to and today, right? I celebrate those failures. I want to increase my number of failures. I am a believer that if you're pig-headed, that if you just won't quit, if you just keep showing up and keep building relationships and you keep getting a little bit better at knowing a little bit more and being a little bit better at your craft, if you keep getting a little bit more persistent at your marketing, this 30 minutes a day that we're talking about here at Breaking into Hollywood, these are the tools. There's no magic sauce. This is what success looks like in the world. Thomas Watson from IBM was famously quoted once as saying, if you want to know the secret to success, it's really simple. Double your rate of failure. I mean, everybody from any walk of life will tell you this. And the problem is that we take, as creatives, we often take rejection very personally because it's our writing, it's our acting, it's so, it's innate. It's part of
our heart.
It's our heart. It's our gut. So we teach you. We can't teach persistence, but we can teach you strategies to enhance that, to make that this indelible part of how you are in the world. And we do that with things. We have strategies called the 10 by 10 and your 15-minute alarm clock. We've got all these amazing, when people go, holy crap, I've never heard that. That's amazing. It's like so simple. It takes all the stress out of it. It speeds my way through the day. I get more done. Great. That's part of it. You don't want to spend years doing what you should be doing in a handful of months. And that's creating relationships, and that's your actual creative output, and that is your persistence. Failure's got nothing on you. It's got nothing on me. It's just a part of life. Like I said, if you fail 90% of the time, you made 2 calls a day in a year, you're a made person in Hollywood. I believe. I've seen it too many times. It's not hyperbole. So, and then we talk a lot about how to turn every no into a conversation starter and how to deepen the relationship every time you hear a no. That's such a beautiful opportunity. It's not a brick wall. It's actually a door that you can walk through. And I've used that a lot, and so I have great personal experience with this, and we talk about it in the course. We talk about how to overcome the prohibition against unsolicited material, which a lot of people, frustrates them. We get around that. So there's
a really good point here too from Tierra Films, New Mexico. Everyone says if you're over 45, you forget it. You can forget it, and he says no. That's why indie films are important. So age is not a block here. You don't need to be 22 to start on this path.
I will tell you that at my age, and I am not 45, and I'm not 35, and I'm not 25. I know different things. I know more. I have a greater wisdom. I could write a different kind of a story today than I ever could write then. You know what? Whatever hair I have left, it is not exactly black, okay? So
Glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, because I know you didn't get that. So I'm not out to fool anybody. What I am is going into the room and being better and more passionate and being smarter and being more strategic than everybody else. And not in a disrespect, like for the benefit of the group, right? It's like I'm there to help lead this conversation. I'm there to teach people how to do that. And I believe that if you give yourself an excuse, a reason, you can have reasons or results in my world. And while I respect that comment because I know where it comes from, Hollywood is a younger town. There's exceptions to every rule on the planet ever devised. And I am telling you that if you write the better story, if you put it on the page, and I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a writer or a writer-director or what kind of, but if you get those pieces right, it really does not matter how old you are. I could tell you, regale you with story after story after story of great success throughout history and even today. People, who failed hundreds of times as authors, as filmmakers, as artists, whatever it was, as writers, and they weren't kids when they finally succeeded.
Well, all of these stories are going to come up over and over because we are going to be doing these live shows every Tuesday for the next few weeks. We've done our hour, Gary, so we need to wrap this up. So we've just gone through the 10 modules. If you want to read them in more detail at your leisure, breakingintohollywood.com, you can find all the information there. You can contact us if you have any further questions. Contact Gary. And what do you want to tease for next week? We've got special guests coming up.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. Number one, please go to if you haven't, many of you have, if you haven't, go to breakingintohollywood.com, scroll to the bottom, put in your name and email so we can stay in touch and we can send out some valuable content and keep you abreast of things like these Hangouts, which we're going to be doing. That would be amazing. Also, what would personally really be, I would thank you, it would be very valuable for me if, just based on tonight's call, if you could go to our Google Plus page, I don't know, Bethan, if there's a way to share with them what that link is, or
Rhonda has been doing throughout the show, so it's in the comments here.
Great. So it's in the comments. If you could go to our Google Plus page, this would be what would be amazing. Let us know your feedback. What, whether it's modules or topics, what piqued your interest? What big questions do you have about your career, whether it's film, television, or otherwise, doesn't matter. And these, it's not just so we can learn. Bethan and I are going to actually answer these questions personally, but we're going to do it in our Google Plus, on our Google Plus page. So that would be number one. And then, of course, the Breaking into Hollywood, the master course that we're talking about all of tonight. Of course, that coursework, the coursework, of course, is for sale. That's the whole point. And so if you're, if you're like us, you also appreciate a discount because today, this day, is our launch day. It's our debut. This is like so fun for us after all this work of the last year. So number one, thank you really from our heart for showing up. It means the world. Number two, we are normally selling this course going forward at $297. But there's a discount. I think it's a 20% discount.
20% discount, and the coupon code is WELCOME, what you use during checkout. And the first 25 people that sign up, we are going to be holding a private hangout. So you can do these, what we're doing right now, as a public hangout, which we're doing, or a private hangout. For the first 25 people that are showing up, we're going to do a private hangout where you can actually come into the room like I am with Gary and ask him questions one-on-one. So I think that's super cool. You can get 20% off and you can come into the room.
Yeah, and so that's a two-way, not just a coming at you thing. So if this is something that makes sense or is valuable for you, what's the word is welcome is the code?
The word is welcome, and I want to say thank you so much to Urshad. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He stayed up in London to watch this, or from England to watch this. We've got people from New Mexico. We have New Zealand. We've got an amazing audience here. So this isn't the only time that you're going to be able to grab Gary. We are going to be here every Tuesday night for at least the next 6 weeks, and with special guests every week, which is going to be great. People who haven't had very great success in film or the TV industries from different perspectives, talking about their what's worked for them, what hasn't. That will also help with the coursework that you're going to be doing. And it's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. every Tuesday night. So, Gary, do you want to wrap this up for tonight? Because we're over time here.
Yeah, for the next handful of Tuesdays, come join us. We're going to have amazing people at the top of their game, people, you know, the showrunners and executive producers of some cool TV shows. We're going to have people from all different categories of Hollywood, if you will, as our guests. And we'll open it up. We'll let you ask some questions of them as well. They're, you know, really good folks and friends and whatnot. So, yeah, come back. And Bethan, the code is good till what? Sunday night, did you say?
Yeah, it's from now till Sunday night. And can I please apologize to Tierra Films New Mexico? I called him a dude, but it's actually a girl. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I knew that. I wasn't going to correct you publicly, but that's okay. So anyway, thank you. You know, really, thank you so much, everyone, for showing up. It means the world. We're so excited that you're sharing this on this our first day as a live reality. So thanks, have a beautiful night, and see you soon.
Thank you, Gary. Good night.